I would like to introduce our speakers for today, Mark Towler and Mark Singh, who will be presenting to you best practices in configuration management. Mark Towler, take it away.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm going to go over our agenda for today just briefly here. The subject is configuration management. I've thrown the word IT in there occasionally just to prevent a little bit of confusion because it can cover a wide variety of configurations. But specifically, we're talking about IT configuration management today. So we're going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about why it's important. We're going to talk about how it works within WhatsUp Gold's network monitoring solution. And then what you can do with it specifically. And I'm going to keep that fairly brief because honestly, the big draw here today is the demonstration of configuration management that Mark Singh is going to put on. After that, we'll do some Q&A and take it from there. So with no further ado, what is IT configuration management? Well, simply put, it is a process for tracking the configuration of items of any IT system. A really quick way of thinking about it is anytime you go into anything, software, hardware, anything, and start monkeying around with settings, that's configuration management. That's what you're doing. All right. The goal here is to set up, to establish, and to maintain a consistent set of configurations for performance, for functions, and even for physical attributes. So basically, this is what's going to make your systems work. Your data centers, your servers, your networks, everything. If they weren't configured properly, they wouldn't work. And the whole goal of configuration management is to keep them configured properly. Now, what exactly properly means is another whole question, but that's something honestly that you're going to figure out and that you're going to be told in some ways, because some of this is due to compliance and various other pieces. Basically, it actually works as well as as a version control for IT infrastructure and software. You know, this is the way we're configured currently. And if something gets out of whack, you can always revert back to the previous version. So why do we care about configuration management? There's a lot of very valid reasons, not only just to be organized. I mean, I happen to know some people are just particularly anal and they want to make sure everything's exactly right, and it causes them physical pain if something's misconfigured. But mostly the two big draws are security and compliance. You've got to know when changes are made. When something gets modified, when a configuration gets changed, that usually means that something's wrong. Either someone made an error, or worse, someone got in, changed configurations to make it easier for them to get in again, or someone added incorrectly configured hardware or software to your network. Any one of these are security risks. Any one of these could be possibilities for a breach. One of the main reasons for having everything configured properly is to keep your system tight and secure. If you've got open ports, if you've got areas where the password's still set up as admin or password or something like that, that's the sort of thing that configuration management is supposed to prevent. And part and parcel with this is the concept of compliance. Depending on your industry, there may very well be governmental or even international regulations with which you are going to be required to comply. And that could be things like HIPAA or GDPR or the California CCPA, I think it is. Or there can be internal ones. It could just simply be, business policy that, no traffic on port 8080 or whatever. And as an IT or sysadmin, your job is to make sure that everything's configured to meet those regulations and to be in compliance with them, because usually there's good reasons why they exist. And if anything, you guys probably know them better than anyone else. So putting them all into place and keeping them all in place is probably the number one and number two goals of IT configuration management. The other piece with configuration management is it's just a massive time saver because it automates everything. You do not want to be going and reconfiguring the settings for every switch or every router manually. You don't want to have a binder that you go into and look up what you're supposed to be doing and type it. That's insane. You can save a lot of time and you can remove any possibility of human error, because we all know how easy it is to fat finger something when you're configuring your 30th router of the day, but to simply hit a button and have the configuration automatically applied. And this is great because, of course, it's stored in the system. And if something goes wrong, or if that router dies or needs to be replaced, or you add a new one, you can always just, with one click, revert to existing or previous configuration. So again, huge time saver. And this also, as I mentioned, edges into scalability. You've got 25 routers that are all configured the same way, and suddenly you need to add another 10. Okay, so just apply those configurations to the new routers and do it automatically. It makes it easy to scale. You're not doing all of that manually. And that goes for hardware and for software as well. A big part of configuration management too is visibility. We're talking about security. We're talking about keeping everything, neat and easy. A big part of this also too comes down to troubleshooting. 9 times out of 10, I'm sorry, that's the wrong number. A significant number of times, a network error is caused by something being misconfigured, either hardware or software. And if you've got a configuration management system that can look at things and go, first thing, was it configured properly? If not, that's probably your problem. If it is, then fine, move on to the rest of the diagnostics. But it's a very important first step. And if you can tell at a glance whether or not your hardware and your software is properly configured, it's going to be a huge tool in helping you diagnose and fix problems. And finally, this is kind of like a common denominator for all of this, proper configuration and management of your configurations is going to improve the experience for end users. And that's really what it's all about, keeping the network running smoothly and safely and easily for end users without causing security breaches or being out of compliance. So how does WhatsUp Gold help with this? WhatsUp Gold has a add-on feature called configuration management, which is designed specifically to help IT and sysadmins who are monitoring their networks also monitor and manage their network configurations. It can allow you to archive and restore network configurations, as we just discussed. It'll keep them in a secure and encrypted repository. And in fact, you can kind of see there on the right, you can actually look at configurations that are current and the proper configurations or the archive configuration on the left, and it'll even highlight which areas have changed. So it makes it easier to zero in on those, who knows, several hundred lines if necessary in some cases to figure out where the changes are. It'll allow you to automatically do bulk changes. So if you've got monthly password changes that need to be implemented, or even just things that are, patches, that sort of stuff, or just, perfect example, we just did a merger and acquisition here with Progress. We acquired a company called Kemp. Somewhere along the line, someone's going to be going through and updating their entire network system to say Progress instead of Kemp at all the relative points. Things like that are the sort of thing that configuration management will allow you to do. The real value, though, we think, is that we can leverage WhatsUp Gold's very sophisticated and very capable alerting and notification capabilities to let you know when something changes. And that's tremendously important. Administration needs to account for every single change, whether it's approved or not. If you're audited, you need to show when those things happened. And configuration management will not only notice that, they will alert you, they will tell you, they will set up, you can alert via Slack, you can alert via Teams, you can alert via email, whatever. And all of that is tracked and reported upon. And you can schedule automatic scans as well to make sure no one's added something new or no one's made modifications since the last time you looked, just to be ultra paranoid. And then, of course, as I mentioned, compliance is a big part of this. You can automatically produce a ton of different reports out of the network configuration management feature. This will support regular audits. You can just have them delivered automatically via email to the auditors, or you can archive them as well. And it's just going to make it simpler to set this whole sort of proof of compliance up and to keep on track regularly of what's going on with your network. So that's kind of the high level. Some of the specific capabilities that are built into the WhatsUp Gold configuration management include some of these capabilities. There's the archive management, which will obviously allow you to maintain configuration archives. I kind of showed it on the last page, the comparison back and forth. You've got script libraries for both command line interfaces and tasks, as well as a task library that will determine what tasks get run on what type of managed devices, and the configuration policy library, which is what's going to allow you to search through those archive configurations and look for either expected or unexpected changes within those files. I mentioned you can easily use configuration management to apply configurations to new devices or new software that you add. That's a perfect example of where the configuration template library would come in. If you know, for example, that you've got a Cisco 8-port router and you want it configured this way, you can simply label any new Cisco routers as requiring the same configuration template and apply that to them. And of course, all of this applies as well to VLANs as well. And that's the high level. I'm going to get out of the way at this point and hand things over to Mark Singh so he can actually walk you through a demonstration of configuration management and show you what I've only been talking about. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared here.
I've just made you the organizer, Mark. You should be ready to roll.
Okay. Let's see here. Are you able to see what's the goal interface there?
Yes, we are.
Oh, very
Yes.
good. All right. So thank you, guys. So this is the interface for What's Up Gold. Hopefully everyone on the call is familiar with this. The What's Configured add-on is going to be found here under the add-on section under the settings menu. So when we go into configuration, you're going to see a few sub items there like CLI settings library. Much of what you will need to do a configuration backup is already comes already preloaded in this tool. There's something called a system script library. You'll notice a ton of Cisco entries here for configuration backups, password changes, and so on. Not just Cisco, it's you'll find your HPs or SMC Foundries, Extreme, and so on. Dell, all of them are here. If you do not find the vendor that you're dealing with in terms of the device, you could always add your own scripts or import them. Probably get something from our online community or online search, and then you could import these into this library. Now, the way it works is you'll notice there's something called a keys section here. That key should look familiar if you're familiar with SNMP, because when you look at a device SNMP object ID, you'll see that same key. Now, what it is, that 9 as an example is the number or numerical indicator in SNMP OID for Cisco. So when you go back to the library, everything that's Cisco, or mostly everything that Cisco is going to have that 9. I think Dell is I forgot what number that is, but that's what we're referring to. So when you go back into the system scripts library and you tell config management to run a backup or change a password, it knows to apply the Cisco scripts out of the library as opposed to here's let me see here. Here's HP is a .11 and 202 is SMC. So as you can see, each vendor has their own unique object ID indicator there. So with that said, the way this works is you'll find something called a task library. And in the task library, this is where you can schedule these tasks to run. If it's a password change, that gets done without schedule, but anything else, you do a schedule and then you'll select a script to run as a task. Now, What's Up Gold comes already pre-configured with the backup running config and the backup start config tasks. Anything else, you could add those. So you select the script that you want to run, and then you select the device or devices that you want these to apply to. So you could select individual devices. You could use the shift key to select multiples, hit apply there, or you could select an entire group of devices. So we could say, let's go ahead and grab, let's say, let me see, let's say Cisco Meraki. Apply. That's just an example, but that's how simple it is to apply multiple devices. I'm not going to run this task. I just want to show you how you select devices. In the threshold under this tab, basically, this is actually an optional tab. It's not necessary for this task to run, but you can enable it if you want to be alerted on changes, like if it detects any configuration changes. If it fails to run, you could do something for there for that as an alert as well. And then if it fails a policy, What's Up Gold comes pre-loaded with Cisco, FISMA, HIPAA, and SOX policies, as well as Juniper, as well as Foundry. Now you could add more. There's an actual config management policy library here where you could go into these policies. You could look at the patterns that they include or exclude certain patterns, or even create your own. And so what What's Up Gold will do during the task run is actually do an audit it will do an audit to on any device that it's running the task against, and then it will let you know if it fails or not. Now, as I mentioned, this does run on schedule, so basically you'll select the schedule there and it will run. So once you've done that part, at that point it's just this tool taking over, and it's going to go out there and run the archive. So what that looks like, so I can show you, this is a report showing me configuration archives to date. So if I were to select a device and go to its properties, like I'm doing here, you'll notice in the properties area, all the way down to the bottom, you'll see tasks, and you'll see a number indicating the number of tasks that we've assigned. So I'm using a backup running config and a backup start config task here. From this view, you could actually run any of these tasks. Down at the bottom, the way it will make a backup is it will compare what it finds in the configuration to the last backup that was made. And if it detects a change or something different in the configuration, it will then make a new backup. And this new backup then will get added to the device's record. Now, you can compare the two backups. You'll see where, and there was just one difference. You'll see where in the configuration the difference is. As you can see, you could compare, we could run all the way down and then compare them line for line. Nothing else is different. From here, Mark had mentioned this earlier, you can actually do a restore. So let's say I wanted to restore that configuration from September 19, 2021. I can do so. I can use a secure file transfer, and I can restore it back to the device. Now, in order for this to work, WhatsUp needs two types of credentials. One is SNMP. The SNMP part is useful in that it identifies that SNMP OID. Again, to run the correct script, it will need an SNMP object ID to be able to link the proper script to the proper device. The second item is going to be SSH and or Telnet. So obviously SSH is more secure. So when you go into the credentials library there, like I have quite a bit here configured, you'll go into SSH and or create a new credential, and it will ask you for your password. It will ask you for an enabled password as well for this to run. And so with SSH in place, these tasks can be executed and run. There's an actual report. You just saw it where we could compare the two on the device level. There's actually a report called start versus run. And start versus run, it will show you all results. You could filter by, okay, just show me the ones that are different. And where they're different, you could actually click on the link here, and then it will show you where in the configurations again you'll find differences. So though that's the report for configuration management. There's also one called task log, basically indicating successes and failures. If it failed, it'll ask you, give you a reason for the failure. Maybe it's something to do with the SSH, or maybe a bad password, but it will tell you why it failed there. So beyond that, under config management, you also have some other tools that you could use as you're developing your script. One is the task script library. Here's where you can basically debug whatever script you want to run, and it will just go through the process of just running through everything here. You could just play it and it will just go through. I'm not going to do a restore here, but to show you how this will work, I could easily do a backup again and just select a device, and it will take all the passwords. And then here we could do a play, and it will just go through these commands, show you if it succeeded, if it failed. We saw failure there. And then it will just go through this process, and there's a log and trace information here. So we give you the tools to test your scripts out, debug your scripts pointed at your devices to find out how they will perform or where there are failures and so forth, so you could adjust there. And then finally, you will have an option in config management to do things like VLAN manager or VLAN management, where we can select a device that you are responsible. Let's go ahead and grab this same guy here, apply, and you'll see the SSH credentials, and here we can make changes. It looks like that device might not have had much in config management. Let me grab another one here to see QA2960. So here we go. And so here, you could edit any of this information, and then once you do so, you could commit the changes on the device, or you could edit trunks and so on to what you have there in VLAN Manager. So it's just another tool that comes with the VLAN Manager. All of it is going to be found here. You have a template library, you have a task script library, system script library. You have your remote client settings. So if you want to use Telnet, you want to use SSH clients, you could use that as well. And then you'll also find things like file transfer, where you could use either TFTP, SFTP, or Scoop for your transfers. So that is the config management add-on. I'm going to stop there. We could open it up for questions. So I'll turn it back over to you, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. And also Mark squared. I have a couple of questions that have come in, and we'll go ahead and get started. And one of those is configuration management included?
Well, config management is an add-on for WhatsUp Gold. So if you bought it like Total Plus, you get config management, but it's an add-on.
Awesome. And if I do a free trial of WhatsUp Gold, will I be able to try configuration management?
Yeah, so the free trial is totally open in terms of all the add-ons and everything. You could test not only config management, network traffic analysis, NetFlow analysis, APM and so on, log management. All of that is wide open on the evaluation, so you do have access to it.
And just to chime in on that, we've got basically two different, well, I guess really three ways that WhatsUp Gold comes in, either as a subscription, as what we call the premium package, which is the core WhatsUp Gold functionality with add-on features like configuration management available a la carte. So you can buy the features you want and not buy the features you don't need. Or there's the Total Plus solution, which includes all of the add-on features as well, and that includes configuration management. And just while we're on the subject, a lot of those add-ons are licensed by device or by point, depending on the flavor of the edition you pick up. Configuration management is the one exception. It's either on or off. If you've got configuration management, it applies to everything you're monitoring in your network with WhatsUp Gold. So it's actually a really good value.
Awesome. Someone just wrote, can you add those scripts, backup scripts for other vendors, for example, F5, Palo Alto, Fortinet, Checkpoint, etc.?
Absolutely. You could always add those. Our pro service team could help with that, but you could definitely add more scripts. So that's not an exhaustive list at all.
Awesome. I hope that helps answer the question there, David. Would you really want to automatically restore your configurations or configs if they change?
Someone saw one of my previous, sorry, go ahead, Mark, if you want to answer this one. All I want to say about it is I think someone saw a previous session where I was mentioning that you could automatically restore configs upon alert if something changed, but whether or not that's something you want to do is an interesting question.
Right, the wood part is where that caught me there. But let's say you needed to, or let's say you needed to execute some sort of action that required config management. You'll find in the actions library, there is an action type called config management action. And so as a result of this, what I like to do, I like to use this example instead of a restore, let's do a backup. So let's say you had a trap or a syslog notice that some change has been made to a configuration. Instead of waiting on that schedule to kick in, let's say I schedule it every midnight to run to check to see if there are any changes. I can be alerted immediately using something like a syslog passive monitor that something has changed in the configuration, and then as an action beyond, in addition to notifying you via email or SMS or Slack, I can execute a config management action to immediately take a backup, or we could even do a restore. So any task that you set up there, you could run that as an action upon learning of a certain event or getting a certain notification, whether it's via syslog or a monitor that you've set up and defined.
Awesome. And then the person that was asking about the scripts is asking, he can't find the scripts from the other vendors. So do you have any advice on where he can go to locate those?
I would recommend the WhatsUp Go community, or if there aren't any online forums, we could try that. And if it really comes down to it, our pro services team could probably help with that as well.
Okay, great. I'm going to be sending the link to the community to you directly, David. You need to make an account if you do not already have one. Awesome. And then we had another question. I have a config management license, but it's per device. Can you confirm licensing is now for all devices?
Yes, so you'll notice something in the configuration management licensing. Here's config management. You'll notice there aren't any numbers there.
You're no longer sharing.
Sorry.
That's fine. I can bring you back your screen. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're gonna need to share your screen again.
Let me, here we go. So here's the the about screen. You'll notice in all plugins, there's a number where points are used, where, application monitoring, network traffic analysis, and so on. If points are available that's used, it will show you how many of those you're using or consuming. When it comes to config management, it basically applies to every device. So it doesn't, you basically have it, you're not paying more once you use it for more devices. That's not how this particular plugin works. It basically, you pay for the add-on and then you have access. So if, let's say you're monitoring, I'm monitoring 165 devices. Let's say these were 165 routers or switches, and I wanted to do configuration management, backup, and so on these devices. I could do so on all of these devices. It doesn't add more to my licensing requirement, not as long as I have the config management add-on.
Yep. I'm not sure if we ever had an older version that was priced by device, but if so, definitely feel free to upgrade, please. Just as a reminder, if you've got a maintenance contract with us, all upgrades are free while you're active on that contract. And just again, we're showing a Total Plus version here. Total Plus prices by points, which are slightly different when it comes to the add-ons as compared to the WhatsUp Gold Premium edition, where the add-ons are licensed by device. So for example, we're sitting here looking at 165 devices being monitored by base WhatsUp Gold. That would be 165 device license, whereas here it's showing us 165 points. Total Plus, the advantage is the points can just be shuffled around however you'd like. You can move them wherever you need. The network traffic analysis here, for example, there's 120 points devoted to that. We actually charge 10 points per network traffic analysis device, so that's actually going to be 12 devices that we've got network traffic analysis working on. If you were using Premium, WhatsUp Gold Premium, that would show up as a network traffic analysis 10 or 15 or 20, however we price it. So it would show you how many points you're using and how many are still outstanding. The nice thing with configuration management is, again, it's literally on or off. Once you've got configuration management implemented, everything you're monitoring is subject to or can be managed with configuration management.
Awesome. And then Mark, I don't know if you're still sharing, but someone is asking if you can show how to set up a configuration management.
How to set it up. So it comes down to what task are you looking to run. So here in the task library, this is where you can schedule it to run, and it will ask you for the script that you want to execute. So once you have the script defined, if it's not one of the backups, like let's say we wanted to change SNMP community name, we can select it there and then go to devices and assign it to your devices. So once you select a device to run the script on, it's just a matter of scheduling it and decide what time you want it to be scheduling, hit OK. And so with that, it will go ahead and run against that particular device. You do have to give it a name for it to save, and like that, we have a configuration task set up.
Awesome. Derek, I hope that answered your question. I don't see any other questions that have come in so far, so I wanted to say thank you, Mark Squared, for your guys' presentation today, and I wanted to say thank you to everyone who joined us. If you have questions that come up after the fact, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can just reply to your GoToWebinar email, or if you have any other questions on how to set up config management, you can visit the community at community.progress.com, or you can reach out to us at whatsupgold.com. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.